Here's a list of 13 of the worst cars from the 1970s that were so bad, they were often associated with being affordable only for those with tight budgets. These cars suffered from poor quality, bad design, or mechanical issues that left them notorious for their cheapness and unreliability. The 1975 Plymouth Valiant, part of the long-running Valiant line that Chrysler had introduced in the 1960s, had a reputation that was mixed at best. On one hand, it was known for being a relatively affordable, no-frills compact car that catered to budget-conscious buyers, but on the other, its design and mechanical reliability left much to be desired. By the mid-1970s, the Valiant was starting to feel outdated, and its flaws were becoming more pronounced as newer, more modern competitors entered the market. One of the most immediate and noticeable issues with the 1975 Plymouth Valiant was its design. The car had a boxy, uninspired look that did little to stand out from the crowd. While it was never intended to be a flashy vehicle, its lack of visual appeal became more of a drawback as buyers in the compact car market began to expect cars that were both economical and stylish. The Valiant, with its blocky shape and lack of modern design elements, felt more utilitarian than sleek, which limited its appeal to younger or more image-conscious consumers. By 1975, the car looked like a relic from a bygone era, especially compared to competitors like the Honda Civic or the Toyota Corolla, which offered a more modern, aerodynamic appearance. Beyond its uninspiring looks, the 1975 Plymouth Valiant was also plagued by frequent mechanical issues. While earlier versions of the Valiant had earned a reputation for rugged durability, the 1975 model suffered from a variety of reliability problems. Engine issues, particularly with its Slant 6 engine, were common. Though the Slant 6 was known for its simplicity and toughness, by the mid-1970s it had begun to show signs of age. Problems with oil leaks, overheating, and rough idling became frequent complaints among Valiant owners. The car's electrical system was also prone to malfunctions, with reports of faulty alternators, worn-out ignition systems, and dimming headlights becoming more frequent as the car aged. One of the most frustrating aspects of owning a 1975 Valiant was the cost of maintenance. While the car was initially inexpensive to buy, the frequent repairs it required quickly ate into any savings the owner might have gained from its low purchase price. The Valiant's cheap construction meant that parts wore out more quickly than they should have, leading to regular trips to the mechanic. Suspension problems were another common issue, with many owners reporting that the car's ride quality deteriorated rapidly as the suspension components failed under the weight of the vehicle. These problems made the Valiant expensive to maintain, undermining its status as a budget-friendly car. The interior of the 1975 Plymouth Valiant was equally unremarkable. Chrysler had clearly designed the Valiant with economy in mind, but in doing so, they had sacrificed comfort and style. The interior was sparse, with cheap plastic and vinyl materials that wore out quickly and gave the car a generally low-quality feel. The seats were uncomfortable, offering little in the way of support, which made long drives a less than pleasant experience. Noise insulation was also minimal, so the cabin was often loud, with road noise and engine sound seeping in, further detracting from the overall driving experience. Adding to the Valiant's woes was the fact that it arrived at a time when American automakers were struggling to adapt to new federal emissions and safety regulations. The 1970s were a challenging decade for the U.S. auto industry as companies scrambled to meet new standards without sacrificing performance. The Valiant was no exception, and its already weak engine was further burdened by the emissions control equipment that was required by law. This resulted in a noticeable drop in performance, with the car becoming even slower and less responsive than earlier models. The Valiant's fuel economy also suffered, and though it was intended to be an economical choice, it struggled to compete with the increasingly fuel-efficient imports that were gaining popularity during the energy crisis. Despite these flaws, the 1975 Plymouth Valiant did have a few redeeming qualities. It was easy to work on, and parts were relatively inexpensive, making it a favorite among budget-conscious car enthusiasts who were willing to put in the time to keep it running. Its simplicity also meant that it was fairly reliable once its common issues were addressed, and there are still a number of enthusiasts who appreciate the Valiant for its straightforward design and mechanical toughness. However, for the average consumer in the 1970s, the frequent mechanical issues, combined with the car's lack of style and comfort, made it a hard sell. The 1972 Dodge Polara was a full-size sedan that had a solid history dating back to its introduction in 1960. However, by the early 1970s, the Polara was struggling to keep up with the rapidly changing automotive landscape. Known for its large dimensions and classic American styling, the Polara found itself outmatched in both performance and desirability, particularly as the oil crisis and new consumer demands for efficiency began to shape the market. One of the primary reasons the 1972 Dodge Polara failed to make a lasting impression was its weak performance. Despite being marketed as a full-size vehicle, the car was underpowered, especially when compared to some of its competitors. The base engine offered in the 1972 model was a 5.2-liter V8, which, while sizable on paper, produced a disappointing 150 horsepower. For a car as large and heavy as the Polara, this simply wasn't enough to deliver the kind of performance buyers were expecting from a V8-powered sedan. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car struggled to offer much in the way of excitement behind the wheel. For those looking to upgrade, the Polara did offer a 5.9-liter V8 and even a 7.2-liter V8, but these larger engines didn't entirely solve the problem. While they provided a modest boost in power, the added weight of these larger engines often canceled out any performance gains. As a result, the Polara remained sluggish, and its handling was far from nimble. The car's large size and soft suspension made it feel floaty and unresponsive, especially on winding roads. It was clearly designed more for straight-line cruising than for any sort of spirited driving. The Polara's performance issues were compounded by the fact that it was launched at a time when fuel efficiency was becoming an increasingly important factor for buyers. The early 1970s saw the beginning of the oil crisis, and with rising fuel prices, many consumers were looking for smaller, more efficient vehicles. The Polara, with its gas-guzzling V8 engines and heavy frame, was the exact opposite of what the market wanted. Its poor fuel economy further diminished its appeal, especially as competitors like the Ford LTD and Chevrolet Caprice were starting to offer more efficient options. Another factor that worked against the 1972 Dodge Polara was its low resale value. While it wasn't uncommon for American cars of the era to depreciate quickly, the Polara was particularly hard hit. This was due in part to its lack of performance and its reputation for being uninspiring. Buyers simply weren't interested in holding on to these cars for long, and as a result, they flooded the used car market. The large number of Polaris on the market, combined with their weak reputation, pushed down resale values even further. By the mid-1970s, it was common to see these cars selling for a fraction of their original price, making them an unattractive option for anyone looking for a car with long-term value. The design of the 1972 Polara also failed to excite buyers. While Dodge had tried to give the car a more modern look, it was still relatively conservative and lacked the bold styling that had once made American cars stand out. The front end featured a wide, flat grille and square headlights, while the overall shape of the car was boxy and unremarkable. In an era when car designs were beginning to take on more aerodynamic and streamlined forms, the Polara's design felt a bit outdated. The interior, too, was fairly basic, with few luxury features or options to make it feel special. In terms of build quality, the Polara didn't fare much better. Like many American cars of the era, it was plagued by quality control issues. Owners reported problems with rust, particularly in the colder climates where road salt was used. The car's electrical system was also prone to failure, with issues ranging from faulty alternators to malfunctioning lights and dashboard instruments. The cost of maintaining the car, especially as it aged, made it even less appealing, further contributing to its low resale value. While the 1972 Dodge Polara did have some redeeming qualities, such as its spacious interior and comfortable ride, these weren't enough to save it from mediocrity. It was a car that simply didn't keep up with the times, offering weak performance at a time when buyers were increasingly looking for efficiency and reliability. Its low resale value and uninspiring design only added to its woes, making it a forgettable entry in Dodge's history. In the end, the Polara was a car that represented the excesses of the American auto industry before the energy crisis forced a shift in priorities. It was big, inefficient, and underpowered. And by the mid-1970s, it was clear that the market had moved on. The 1974 Mercury Montego was a mid-size car that embodied many of the design and engineering challenges that American automakers faced during the 1970s. Positioned as a family car and often marketed as a more upscale option within Ford's mid-size lineup, the Montego struggled to distinguish itself. Despite its large size, the car failed to deliver in areas that buyers cared about most, such as handling, performance, and design. One of the primary issues with the 1974 Mercury Montego was its excessive weight. At over 4,000 pounds in certain trims, the Montego was far too heavy for its class. This bulk led to a range of performance problems, starting with its sluggish acceleration. Equipped with either a 302 cubic inch V8 or a larger 351 cubic inch V8 engine, the Montego had enough power on paper, but the weight of the car sapped much of that power. Acceleration was slow, and the car struggled to deliver the kind of responsive driving experience that buyers had come to expect from V8-powered vehicles. Even the larger engines didn't provide much of a boost, as they were tuned more for durability and smoothness than for speed. Handling was another major issue for the Montego. Due to its heavy frame and outdated suspension system, the car felt unwieldy, particularly around corners or during quick maneuvers. Steering was sluggish and unresponsive, making the Montego difficult to drive in tight spaces or urban environments. While the car performed adequately on highways and straight roads, it was not the kind of vehicle that offered a fun or engaging driving experience. The soft suspension also contributed to body roll, which made the Montego feel even more unwieldy when cornering at higher speeds. Adding to these performance issues was the Montego's uninspired design. While Mercury attempted to give the car a more refined look, it ultimately came across as generic and bland. The front end featured a wide, square grille that wasn't particularly memorable, and the overall shape of the car was boxy and conservative. The Montego lacked the distinctive styling that could have helped it stand out in a crowded market. For many buyers, it simply didn't have the visual appeal that other cars from the 1970s had, which made it an easy car to overlook. The interior of the 1974 Montego also failed to leave a lasting impression. While it was spacious, providing plenty of room for passengers and cargo, it lacked the luxury features and refinement that Mercury often aimed to provide. The materials used in the cabin felt cheap and dated, and the design was utilitarian rather than stylish. In an era when buyers were starting to expect more from mid-size and full-size cars in terms of interior comfort and technology, the Montego fell short. Features like power windows, air conditioning, and advanced sound systems were either optional or lacking, making the car feel bare bones compared to some of its competitors. Fuel efficiency, a growing concern in the 1970s due to the oil crisis, was yet another area where the Montego underperformed. Like many other large V8-powered cars of its time, the Montego was a gas guzzler. Its heavy weight and large engine meant that it offered poor fuel economy, which made it less appealing at a time when consumers were starting to prioritize efficiency. As fuel prices soared, the Montego's appetite for gas became a major drawback, further limiting its market appeal. Build quality was another area where the Montego struggled. Owners reported issues with rust, especially in colder climates, and the car's electrical systems were prone to failure. From faulty wiring to malfunctioning dashboard instruments, the Montego was plagued by a range of small but significant problems that detracted from its overall reliability. These issues, combined with its poor resale value, meant that the Montego wasn't a car many people were eager to hold on to for long. In the end, the 1974 Mercury Montego was a car that failed to make a strong impression on the market. It was weighed down, literally, by its heavy frame, which negatively impacted both performance and handling. Its bland design didn't do much to attract attention, and its interior was unremarkable at best. While it was spacious and comfortable enough for families, the car lacked the refinement, performance, and efficiency that buyers were increasingly demanding during the 1970s. The Montego simply couldn't compete with the more modern, efficient, and stylish offerings from other automakers, and it remains a largely forgettable chapter in Mercury's history. The 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 was a symbol of the American automotive industry's struggle to adapt to the changing landscape of the 1970s. A full-size car, it epitomized the era's penchant for large, heavy vehicles, but by the time it hit the market, consumer tastes were shifting. Rising fuel costs, environmental concerns, and a growing demand for more efficient, performance-oriented cars left the Delta 88 feeling out of touch with the needs of buyers. One of the biggest drawbacks of the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 was its size. Like many American cars of the time, it was enormous, stretching over 18 feet in length and weighing more than 4,000 pounds. While this made for a roomy and comfortable interior, it also had a significant impact on performance. The car's size made it cumbersome to handle, especially in urban environments. Parking a vehicle of this magnitude was a challenge, and the Delta 88 didn't offer the kind of nimble driving experience that smaller, more modern cars could provide. The car's sheer bulk also contributed to its sluggish acceleration and poor road performance. Despite being equipped with a large V8 engine, which had been a hallmark of the Oldsmobile brand, the Delta 88 struggled to live up to expectations in terms of power and responsiveness. The base model came with a 350 cubic inch 5.7-liter V8 engine, which produced around 180 horsepower. While that might sound impressive on paper, the Delta 88's weight negated much of the engine's potential, resulting in slow acceleration and underwhelming performance. Even the larger 455 cubic inch 7.5-liter V8 available in higher trims couldn't fully overcome the car's mass, and the engine's power was often described as lethargic, especially when compared to Oldsmobile's earlier, more nimble models. The car's sluggishness was further compounded by its suspension system, which was designed more for comfort than for performance. While the ride was smooth, particularly on highways, it lacked the sharpness and control that many drivers were beginning to seek in the 1970s. The soft suspension contributed to significant body roll during cornering, making the car feel even more unwieldy, especially on winding roads. For a car that was meant to provide both luxury and performance, the Delta 88 fell short, feeling more like a boat than a sporty, dynamic vehicle. Fuel economy was another major issue for the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88. As the oil crisis loomed and gas prices soared, the car's appetite for fuel became a glaring problem. The large V8 engines, coupled with the car's weight, meant that the Delta 88 was a gas guzzler in every sense of the word. With fuel efficiency hovering around 10 to 12 miles per gallon, the car was expensive to run, especially as fuel became more costly and scarce. This made it less attractive to buyers who were increasingly looking for vehicles that could offer better mileage without sacrificing too much in terms of comfort or performance. In terms of design, the 1973 Delta 88 was not particularly exciting either. While Oldsmobile had traditionally been known for producing stylish, innovative cars, the Delta 88's design felt dated and uninspired. The exterior featured broad, flat surfaces and minimal detailing, which lacked the flair that had once made Oldsmobile a standout brand. While it retained the classic American full-size car proportions, the design did little to differentiate it from the competition, and it failed to capture the attention of buyers who were seeking something more modern and dynamic in appearance. The interior of the Delta 88, while spacious, also left much to be desired. While it was comfortable and could easily accommodate 5 passengers, the materials used were not of particularly high quality, and the overall design felt bland and utilitarian. Standard features were minimal, with many buyers opting for higher trims or adding expensive options to get the level of luxury they expected from a full-size car. In an era when consumer expectations for comfort and convenience were rising, the Delta 88 didn't offer enough in its base form to compete with more feature-rich models from other manufacturers. Another issue with the 1973 Delta 88 was its resale value. As consumer tastes shifted toward more fuel-efficient and better-performing cars, large sedans like the Delta 88 became less desirable. The car's poor fuel economy, combined with its sluggish performance and lackluster design, meant that its resale value plummeted quickly. Owners found it difficult to sell their Delta 8s without taking a significant loss, and the car's reputation as an expensive, inefficient vehicle only worsened as the decade wore on. In the end, the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 struggled to adapt to a market that was rapidly moving away from oversized gas-guzzling sedans. While it offered comfort and space, it failed to deliver the kind of performance and efficiency that buyers were beginning to demand. The 1976 Pontiac Le Mans was introduced at a time when the American auto industry was undergoing significant change, yet it struggled to keep up with the shifting demands of the market. As fuel prices skyrocketed during the decade, cars like the Le Mans, with their poor fuel efficiency and outdated designs, quickly fell out of favor. Though it had once been a respectable mid-size car with a history of performance, the 1976 version failed to deliver on multiple fronts, making it one of the more forgettable models of the era. Fuel efficiency was one of the Pontiac Le Mans' most glaring issues. Like many American cars of the 1970s, it was designed with large, heavy engines that were not optimized for fuel savings. The base model came with a 250 cubic inch 4.1-liter inline-six engine, and the larger versions featured 350 cubic inch 5.7-liter and 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter V8 engines. While these engines delivered reasonable power, the trade-off was dismal gas mileage. In an era when drivers were becoming increasingly concerned with fuel consumption due to the 1973 oil crisis and the subsequent rise in fuel costs, the Le Mans' poor efficiency, averaging around 10 to 12 miles per gallon, became a major deterrent for potential buyers. This poor fuel efficiency was further exacerbated by the car's weight. The 1976 Pontiac Le Mans was not a particularly nimble vehicle, and its bulky design contributed to its sluggish performance and gas-guzzling nature. It was a vehicle built for an earlier time when fuel prices were not a concern and when bigger was seen as better. However, by the mid-1970s, consumer priorities had shifted, and the Le Mans felt like a relic of a bygone era, unable to compete with the smaller, more efficient cars gaining popularity from foreign manufacturers. In addition to its fuel issues, the 1976 Pontiac Le Mans suffered from an interior that felt cheap and poorly constructed. Pontiac had a reputation for creating performance-oriented cars with stylish designs, but by the mid-70s, the focus seemed to have shifted to cost-cutting measures. The interior materials of the Le Mans reflected this decline in quality, with plastic components that felt flimsy and upholstery that didn't exude the luxury or comfort expected from a mid-size American car. The dashboard was simplistic and uninspiring, and the overall attention to detail was lacking compared to competitors. One of the biggest complaints from consumers at the time was that the Le Mans interior felt like it had been rushed through production, with minimal effort put into the design or feel of the cabin. This lack of refinement made it difficult for Pontiac to justify the Le Mans price tag, especially when compared to cars that offered better interiors, more features, and a more enjoyable driving experience. Buyers seeking a comfortable and stylish ride were often disappointed, as the Le Mans interior fell short of their expectations. The lack of modern amenities, paired with the use of inferior materials, made it feel like an outdated and underwhelming vehicle for the time. In terms of handling and performance, the 1976 Le Mans was far from exciting. While it was equipped with engines that provided decent horsepower, the car's overall heft and lack of advanced suspension meant that it didn't offer the kind of dynamic driving experience that some of Pontiac's earlier models had been known for. The Le Mans, once a respected nameplate in the world of muscle cars, had drifted far from its performance roots. The car felt sluggish, especially when compared to its predecessors, and the lack of agility or responsiveness made it a chore to drive. Adding to its woes, the design of the 1976 Le Mans was also a point of contention. By this time, the bold, aggressive styling that had once defined American muscle and mid-size cars was being watered down. The Le Mans, with its boxy, uninspired lines, failed to stand out in a market where design flair was still important. The front fascia lacked character, and the overall shape of the car felt dated. While some Pontiac models from earlier years had turned heads with their distinctive styling, The 1976 Le Mans didn't make much of a visual impact. Perhaps one of the most significant problems for the 1976 Pontiac Le Mans was the competition it faced, both from within General Motors and from other automakers. As smaller, more fuel-efficient cars from Japan and Europe began to flood the US market, the Le Mans found itself struggling to remain relevant. Even within GM's own lineup, the Le Mans had to contend with other models that offered similar or better performance with more refined interiors and more efficient engines. Consumers had more choices than ever, and the Le Mans simply didn't offer enough to stand out. Resale value was another major issue for the Le Mans. As gas prices remained high and the market shifted towards smaller cars, vehicles like the Le Mans became harder to sell. The 1970 Buick Skylark was a vehicle that encapsulated the transitional phase of American cars in the early 1970s. As consumers began to demand more fuel efficiency and agile handling, the Skylark found itself struggling to meet these new expectations. Known for its size and traditional styling, the Skylark's heavy build and underwhelming performance ultimately detracted from its appeal, making it a model that left much to be desired. When it came to design, the 1970 Skylark was a product of its era, embodying the larger is better philosophy that dominated American automotive manufacturing at the time. With its imposing dimensions, the Skylark was a heavy car, which made it feel less nimble on the road. The substantial weight contributed to a sense of solidity, but it also resulted in sluggish handling characteristics that disappointed many drivers. Turning corners felt cumbersome, and the car lacked the responsiveness that many competitors offered. In a market where buyers were beginning to appreciate smaller, more agile vehicles, the Skylark's heft became a liability rather than an asset. Fuel efficiency was another significant concern for the Skylark. With the onset of the oil crisis in the early 1970s, consumers became increasingly aware of the rising costs of gasoline. Unfortunately, the Skylark's fuel economy did not align with this newfound awareness. Its large engines, including a standard 350 cubic inch V8, delivered respectable power, but that came at the expense of fuel consumption. Many buyers found themselves frustrated by the need to frequently refuel, particularly as they sought vehicles that could offer more miles per gallon. The Skylark's inefficient fuel usage made it difficult to justify its ownership, especially when competitors were beginning to offer more fuel-efficient alternatives. Performance-wise, the 1970 Skylark struggled to live up to the legacy of Buick's reputation for building refined and powerful vehicles. While the V8 engine options were capable of providing reasonable power output, the overall performance felt flat. Acceleration was not as impressive as one might expect from a car in its class, leaving drivers wanting more thrill and excitement behind the wheel. The Skylark did not have the sporty edge that some of its contemporaries possessed, leading to a lack of enthusiasm among consumers who were looking for a more engaging driving experience. Moreover, the Skylark's interior did little to redeem its overall performance shortcomings. Although it featured a spacious cabin that could comfortably accommodate passengers, the materials and overall design felt dated and uninspired. Competing models offered more modern, stylish interiors with better quality finishes and attention to detail. The Skylark's lack of innovation in this area made it feel less appealing to buyers who were starting to prioritize comfort and aesthetics in their vehicle choices. One of the Skylark's most significant challenges was the fierce competition within the automotive market during the 1970s. With the emergence of compact and mid-size cars from both American and foreign manufacturers, buyers had numerous options that offered better performance and fuel efficiency. The Skylark was often overshadowed by these alternatives, as many consumers gravitated toward cars that better aligned with their changing needs and preferences. The Skylark's inability to adapt to these shifts ultimately contributed to its decline in popularity. In addition to the aforementioned drawbacks, the Skylark also faced challenges with reliability and long-term durability. While many owners reported satisfactory experiences with their vehicles, there were also instances of mechanical issues and a lack of attention to quality control that tarnished its reputation. Reliability concerns became increasingly important to buyers who sought vehicles that would provide dependable transportation in an era marked by rapid change and uncertainty. The 1970 Buick Skylark serves as a reminder of a time when larger cars dominated the market Yet it also highlights the pitfalls of resisting change in an evolving automotive landscape. Its heavy build, underwhelming performance, and lack of innovation left it lagging behind competitors that were more in tune with the shifting preferences of consumers. As fuel prices rose and the demand for efficiency and agility increased, the Skylark struggled to remain relevant, ultimately becoming a model that, despite its heritage, could not find its place in a rapidly changing world. The 1979 Chrysler LeBaron is often remembered as a car that struggled to find its identity in an ever-evolving automotive landscape. While it aimed to capture a sense of luxury and style, its outdated design and persistent reliability issues hindered its appeal, particularly among younger buyers seeking modernity and dependability. From the outset, the LeBaron's styling felt like a relic of a bygone era. By the late 1970s, the automotive market was witnessing a shift towards sleeker, more contemporary designs that reflected the changing tastes of consumers. The LeBaron's boxy shape and dated lines were at odds with the trends of the time, leading many potential buyers to perceive it as old-fashioned. The car's exterior lacked the charisma and flair that newer models offered, making it less attractive to younger generations looking for something fresh and appealing. In a market where style could significantly influence purchasing decisions, the LeBaron found itself overshadowed by more visually striking competitors. The interior of the 1979 LeBaron, while spacious and comfortable, also reflected this sense of stagnation. The materials and finishes were utilitarian and did not offer the luxury or modern feel that buyers expected in a car positioned as a higher-end option. Features that were becoming standard in other vehicles, such as advanced sound systems, premium upholstery, and innovative technology, were lacking in the LeBaron, contributing to a perception of mediocrity. As younger consumers sought vehicles that aligned with their lifestyles and aspirations, the LeBaron's interior failed to resonate, leaving it feeling out of touch with contemporary expectations. Reliability issues plagued the Chrysler LeBaron throughout its production run. Many owners reported frequent problems with the engine and electrical systems, leading to frustration and dissatisfaction. Engine troubles ranged from minor annoyances to significant malfunctions that required costly repairs, undermining the car's reputation for dependability. Additionally, the faulty electronics that often characterized the LeBaron contributed to a lack of confidence among owners. In an era when consumers were increasingly looking for vehicles that could provide reliable transportation without the constant worry of breakdowns, the LeBaron's issues became a significant deterrent. Chrysler's attempt to market the LeBaron as a luxury vehicle did little to mitigate the challenges it faced. While the car was intended to attract buyers who sought a sophisticated driving experience, the outdated styling and reliability concerns made it difficult to convince consumers of its value. The disconnect between Chrysler's marketing efforts and the car's actual performance led to a lack of interest from consumers who prioritize practicality and modernity in their vehicle choices. This disconnect further solidified the LeBaron's reputation as an uninspiring option in a crowded market. As the automotive industry continued to evolve, many consumers began to gravitate toward brands that offered not only stylish designs, but also a commitment to quality and reliability. Competitors that embraced innovation and addressed consumer concerns thrived, while the LeBaron struggled to keep pace. The combination of its outdated aesthetic and mechanical shortcomings rendered it less competitive, leaving it vulnerable to market forces that favored vehicles capable of adapting to changing consumer preferences. Ultimately, the 1979 Chrysler LeBaron serves as a reminder of the importance of aligning product offerings with consumer expectations. Its outdated styling and persistent reliability issues made it a tough sell in a market increasingly defined by modernity and dependability. The LeBaron struggled to carve out a niche for itself, ultimately becoming emblematic of the challenges faced by automakers during a period of significant transformation in the automotive industry. The 1974 Chevrolet Impala stands as a poignant reminder of the challenges American automakers faced during a transformative era in the automotive industry. Once a beloved symbol of American luxury and performance, the Impala had evolved into a model that struggled to meet the changing needs and preferences of consumers in a rapidly shifting market. As the fuel crisis of the 1970s began to take hold, The Impala's massive size and inefficiency became increasingly problematic, leading to a decline in its popularity and reputation. Originally launched in the early 1950s, the Chevrolet Impala quickly established itself as one of the top-selling cars in America. Its combination of sleek styling, spacious interiors, and powerful V8 engines made it a favorite among families and young professionals alike. Throughout the 1960s, the Impala maintained its status as a symbol of American automotive excellence, thanks in large part to its reputation for reliability and performance. However, by the early 1970s, the automotive landscape was changing dramatically. In the wake of the oil crisis, American consumers began to prioritize fuel efficiency over size and power. The days of big, gas-guzzling sedans were rapidly coming to an end, and manufacturers scrambled to adapt to this new reality. Unfortunately for the Impala, its transition from a symbol of luxury to a bloated, inefficient vehicle was not seamless. By 1974, the Impala had grown significantly in size, transforming it from a full-size sedan into a behemoth that was difficult to manage and even harder to fuel. One of the most noticeable features of the 1974 Chevrolet Impala was its sheer size. The model was now larger than many of its competitors, making it challenging to navigate through crowded urban streets and tight parking situations. This bloated size detracted from the driving experience and made the Impala feel unwieldy. In an era when maneuverability and ease of driving were becoming increasingly important to consumers, the Impala's dimensions worked against it. The aesthetic appeal of the Impala also suffered due to its size. While the earlier models featured sleek, streamlined designs, the 1974 version appeared cumbersome and dated. The exterior styling failed to resonate with buyers who were increasingly drawn to more modern and compact designs that emphasized agility and efficiency. The car's bulkiness was accentuated by its traditional design elements, which no longer felt relevant in the context of a changing automotive market. The performance of the 1974 Chevrolet Impala further contributed to its decline. While earlier models were equipped with powerful V8 engines that offered exhilarating acceleration and speed, the 1974 version was hampered by its size and weight. The engines, though capable, struggled to deliver the performance that drivers expected. This sluggishness was especially noticeable during acceleration and cornering, where the Impala's bulk became a liability rather than an asset. As gasoline prices surged during the fuel crisis, the Impala's poor fuel economy became a significant drawback. Many consumers found themselves reconsidering their choices, opting for smaller, more efficient vehicles that provided better mileage without sacrificing comfort. The Impala's reputation as a gas guzzler made it a hard sell, particularly to families and individuals who were looking to cut costs in the face of rising fuel expenses. In the context of the 1970s energy crisis, the Impala's size and fuel consumption stood in stark contrast to the growing demand for more economical vehicles. Competing manufacturers began to market smaller cars that boasted better mileage and handling, leaving the Impala at a disadvantage in the eyes of cost-conscious consumers. Despite Chevrolet's efforts to update the Impala with various features and styling tweaks, these changes did little to improve its marketability. Consumers were increasingly drawn to smaller, more efficient options, and the Impala was seen as a relic of a bygone era. Many buyers who had once prized the spaciousness of full-size sedans began to view the Impala as excessive and impractical. The market shift toward compact cars not only affected sales figures, but also impacted the public perception of the Impala. As competitors introduced innovative designs and technologies, the Impala struggled to maintain its status as a desirable vehicle. By the mid-1970s, the Impala was no longer the go-to choice for families and individuals seeking comfort and performance. Instead, it had become emblematic of the challenges faced by American automakers in an evolving market. The 1974 Chevrolet Impala serves as a crucial case study in the history of American automobiles, illustrating the difficulties of adapting to a rapidly changing landscape. Once a celebrated symbol of American automotive excellence, the Impala fell victim to its own size and inefficiency. The 1971 Dodge Dart represents a pivotal moment in automotive history, encapsulating the challenges faced by American manufacturers during a time of significant change. Originally introduced in the early 1960s, The Dodge Dart was designed to be a compact and affordable vehicle, offering consumers a blend of practicality and performance. However, by the early 1970s, the Dart began to show its age, struggling to compete in a market that was increasingly favoring innovation and style. One of the most notable issues with the 1971 Dodge Dart was its outdated design. While earlier models had embraced a sleek and modern aesthetic, the Dart of this era seemed stuck in a time warp. The exterior styling was boxy and unremarkable, failing to capture the attention of potential buyers. In an age when many competitors were rolling out stylish, sporty designs, the Dart's appearance felt uninspired and bland. This lack of visual appeal was a significant drawback, as consumers were becoming more discerning and demanding when it came to aesthetics. Beyond its exterior, the 1971 Dart was plagued by unrefined ride quality. The suspension system failed to provide the smooth, comfortable ride that many consumers expected from a car of its class. Instead, the Dart felt harsh and bumpy, particularly on rough or uneven surfaces. This lack of refinement made it less enjoyable to drive, detracting from the overall experience. As drivers sought vehicles that offered a balance of comfort and performance, the Dart's ride quality became a major point of contention. Another critical aspect of the 1971 Dart was its underpowered engine. While Dodge had once equipped the Dart with a range of robust engine options, the choices available during this period left much to be desired. The engines were often criticized for their lack of power and responsiveness, resulting in sluggish acceleration and a general feeling of lethargy. For many drivers, this underperformance was a deal-breaker, as they had come to expect more from their vehicles. In an era when competition was fierce, a lack of power and excitement could spell doom for a model's success. Moreover, the Dart's focus on functionality over flair became increasingly evident. While it provided basic transportation and could serve as a reliable daily driver, it lacked the charm and character that earlier versions had embodied. The simplicity of the interior design and the use of cheap materials contributed to an overall feeling of dullness. Consumers were increasingly seeking vehicles that offered a sense of personality and style, making the Dart's bland interior a further disadvantage. As fuel prices began to rise and the automotive landscape shifted, the 1971 Dodge Dart struggled to remain relevant. Competing models were beginning to prioritize fuel efficiency and performance, appealing to a more cost-conscious consumer base. The Dart, with its unrefined nature and underpowered engines, seemed ill-equipped to meet these demands. As a result, it lost favor among buyers who were eager for vehicles that combined practicality with excitement. The legacy of the 1971 Dodge Dart serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by American automakers in adapting to a rapidly changing market. While the Dart had initially been a popular and practical choice for consumers, by the early 70s it had become emblematic of a broader struggle within the industry. As manufacturers sought to innovate and capture the attention of a new generation of buyers, the Dart's outdated design, poor ride quality, and lack of power ultimately led to its decline. In the context of automotive history, the 1971 Dodge Dart stands as a case study in the importance of evolution and adaptation. It illustrates how even once popular models can falter when they fail to keep pace with changing consumer preferences and market trends. Ultimately, the Dart's decline highlights the need for manufacturers to remain vigilant and responsive to the ever-evolving landscape of the automotive world, ensuring that their vehicles not only meet practical needs, but also resonate with the desires and aspirations of their customers. The 1978 Ford Fairmont emerged during a tumultuous time in the automotive industry, characterized by rising fuel prices and an increasing demand for compact, fuel-efficient vehicles. As a response to these market shifts, Ford aimed to create a practical and economical car that would meet the needs of cost-conscious consumers. However, despite its intentions, the Fairmont ultimately struggled to leave a lasting impression on the automotive landscape, earning a reputation for being bland and unexciting. From a design perspective, the Ford Fairmont was decidedly unremarkable. Its exterior featured a boxy silhouette, lacking the curves and flair that characterized many of its contemporaries. The front fascia was straightforward, with simple headlights and a modest grille that did little to draw attention. In an era when many automakers were experimenting with bold designs and innovative shapes, the Fairmont's styling felt like a throwback to an earlier time, devoid of the charm or personality that many buyers were seeking. It lacked the sporty edge or distinctive features that could have set it apart in a crowded market. This sense of uninspired design extended to the Fairmont's interior as well. Inside, the cabin was a reflection of its budget-oriented philosophy, prioritizing cost over comfort and aesthetics. The materials used were often subpar, contributing to a sense of austerity that permeated the driving experience. The dashboard was utilitarian, with a basic layout and minimal features. While functional, it lacked the refinement and modern touches that were becoming increasingly important to consumers. The seating was adequate, but offered little in the way of support or comfort, making long drives less enjoyable. This emphasis on simplicity and cost-cutting made the Fairmont feel like a stripped-down vehicle, lacking the inviting atmosphere that many drivers expected. In terms of performance, the Fairmont's engine options were designed to provide adequate power for daily driving needs. However, the engines lacked the responsiveness and excitement that many consumers sought in a car. Acceleration was often sluggish, and the handling was unremarkable, leading to a driving experience that felt more like a chore than a pleasure. While the Fairmont was intended to serve as a practical solution for everyday transportation, it ultimately fell short of delivering the dynamic performance that drivers craved, particularly in a time when competitors were starting to emphasize sportier models. Despite these shortcomings, the Ford Fairmont did offer some advantages, most notably in terms of fuel efficiency. As gas prices soared, many consumers turned their attention to cars that could help them save on fuel costs. The Fairmont's engineering allowed it to achieve respectable mileage figures, which appealed to budget-conscious buyers. However, this practical feature was often overshadowed by the car's overall lack of excitement and character. While some drivers appreciated its functionality, the Fairmont's mundane nature made it difficult for many to feel passionate about owning one. The market's shifting dynamics during the late 1970s presented significant challenges for the Fairmont. As consumers began to prioritize style, performance, and excitement, the Fairmont's practical but uninspiring nature became increasingly apparent. In contrast, many competing models were beginning to incorporate sportier designs, more powerful engines, and an overall emphasis on the driving experience. The Fairmont's failure to adapt to these changing consumer preferences left it feeling out of place in a rapidly evolving automotive landscape. As a result, the 1978 Ford Fairmont became emblematic of a period when practicality and economy often took precedence over style and performance. While it fulfilled its role as a budget-friendly vehicle, its bland design, cheap interior materials, and lackluster performance ultimately led to a legacy of mediocrity. The Fairmont serves as a reminder of the importance of balancing practicality with innovation in the automotive industry. In a time when consumers were seeking excitement and engagement in their vehicles, the Fairmont's uninspired approach highlighted the challenges faced by automakers in creating cars that resonated with buyers. In retrospect, the Fairmont story is a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of sacrificing excitement for practicality. While it may have provided a solution for budget-conscious consumers, its lack of character and appeal ultimately left it overshadowed by more engaging and stylish competitors. The Ford Fairmont stands as a testament to an era in the automotive industry where the focus on fuel efficiency and affordability often resulted in vehicles that failed to inspire enthusiasm, leaving a mark that is still remembered today as an example of automotive mediocrity. The 1975 Chevrolet Nova represents a significant moment in automotive history, embodying the struggles of an iconic model that was unable to adapt to the rapidly changing landscape of the mid-1970s. Launched initially in 1962, the Nova had carved out a reputation as a compact car that combined style, performance, and affordability, making it a popular choice among American consumers. However, as the industry evolved and consumer preferences shifted, the 1975 Nova found itself increasingly out of touch with the demands of the market. By the mid-1970s, the automotive world was undergoing a major transformation, spurred largely by the oil crisis of 1973. This crisis fundamentally altered consumer priorities, with a sharp focus on fuel efficiency and practicality emerging in response to soaring gasoline prices. As a result, larger, more powerful vehicles that had dominated the market for decades were falling out of favor, and manufacturers were rushing to develop compact models that could offer the same functionality with improved fuel economy. In this context, the Nova began to show its age, becoming less competitive against a new generation of vehicles designed to meet the changing needs of drivers. One of the most striking aspects of the 1975 Nova was its design. While earlier iterations of the Nova had been characterized by a sleek and stylish profile, the mid-1970s version was increasingly criticized for its lack of innovation and modern appeal. The exterior design, which once turned heads with its clean lines and sporty stance, had become boxy and uninspired. The aesthetic choices made during this time failed to resonate with a consumer base that was becoming more interested in contemporary styling and cutting-edge features. As competitors introduced vehicles with more dynamic designs, the Nova's appeal waned and it began to blend into the background of the crowded automotive landscape. Under the hood, the performance of the 1975 Nova also left much to be desired. Chevrolet offered a range of engine options, including a base 250 cubic inch inline six and a larger V8. However, these engines struggled to deliver the power and excitement that drivers were seeking. The inline six, while reliable, was known for its sluggish acceleration, making it less than thrilling for those who craved a spirited driving experience. The optional V8 engine, although more powerful, failed to offer the exhilarating performance that many consumers expected, especially when compared to the increasingly competitive offerings from other manufacturers. This lack of a compelling engine choice contributed to the Nova's dwindling appeal, as consumers began to prioritize vehicles that could deliver both power and efficiency. Reliability was another significant concern for the 1975 Nova. Many owners reported issues with the vehicle's mechanical systems, particularly with the electrical components and transmission. These frequent breakdowns led to frustration among drivers who had come to expect dependability from their vehicles. The Nova, once known for its durability, became associated with a host of reliability problems that tarnished its reputation. As word spread about these issues, potential buyers became wary, further diminishing the car's attractiveness in the marketplace. Inside, the Nova offered a functional but ultimately uninspiring interior. While it provided the basic necessities for everyday driving, the cabin lacked the comfort in modern features that consumers were increasingly seeking. The materials used in the interior felt cheap and dated, and the design was utilitarian, failing to evoke a sense of style or luxury. As other manufacturers began to introduce cars with more comfortable seating, improved sound insulation, and advanced technology, the Nova's interior seemed stuck in the past, further alienating potential buyers. The repercussions of the 1975 Nova's shortcomings were evident in its resale value. As reliability issues became known, and as the car's dated design failed to attract attention, its resale prices plummeted. This created a cycle of decline, as potential buyers were hesitant to invest in a vehicle that was perceived as problematic. The combination of low resale value and a tarnished reputation made the Nova a less appealing option in the used car market, leaving many consumers to seek out alternatives that promised greater reliability and modern features. Ultimately, the 1975 Chevrolet Nova serves as a cautionary tale of an iconic model that struggled to keep pace with the evolving demands of the automotive market. Its inability to adapt to changing consumer preferences, along with its dated design, underwhelming performance, and reliability issues, rendered it less competitive in a time of significant transformation. While the Nova had once been a symbol of American automotive innovation and style, by the mid-1970s, the 1970 AMC Rebel stands as a testament to the challenges faced by American Motors Corporation during a time when consumer expectations for quality and design were evolving rapidly. Positioned as a mid-size sedan, the Rebel aimed to attract buyers looking for an affordable yet practical vehicle. However, it quickly became apparent that it struggled to compete with the established automakers that dominated the market, and its shortcomings became glaringly obvious. From the outset, the Rebel's design was rather uninspired. While it attempted to fit in with the styling trends of the late 1960s and early 1970s, it lacked the distinctiveness and flair that consumers were beginning to appreciate in their vehicles. The exterior was rather bland, characterized by straight lines and basic features that failed to capture the imagination of potential buyers. In an era marked by bold and innovative designs, the Rebel's conservative approach made it easy to overlook, contributing to its lack of popularity. The most significant flaw of the 1970 AMC Rebel was its cheap build quality, which became a point of contention among owners. Many reported issues with the materials used in the interior, which felt subpar compared to competitors in the same segment. Dashboard components, upholstery, and trim pieces often showed signs of wear and tear much sooner than expected. As a result, the interior had a tendency to fall apart, leaving owners frustrated with their purchase. This lack of durability diminished the overall ownership experience and left many regretting their decision to choose the Rebel over more reputable options. Adding to the woes of the Rebel was its susceptibility to rust. In an era when automotive manufacturers were striving to improve corrosion resistance, the Rebel lagged behind. Many owners experienced rust issues within just a few years of ownership, leading to further disappointment. This not only affected the car's aesthetic appeal, but also posed a significant threat to its structural integrity. As the years went on, the combination of rust and cheap materials made the Rebel an unmemorable choice for consumers seeking a reliable and long-lasting vehicle. Furthermore, the lack of refinement in the Rebel's design and engineering left it feeling rudimentary compared to its contemporaries. While some cars of the era boasted features like improved suspension systems and soundproofing that enhanced the driving experience, the Rebel fell short in these areas. Its handling was often criticized as clunky, and the ride quality left much to be desired. In a time when consumers were increasingly valuing comfort and performance, the Rebel's shortcomings became apparent, making it a less desirable option for those looking for an enjoyable driving experience. In summary, the 1970 AMC Rebel's legacy is one of missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. With its uninspired design, cheap build quality, and susceptibility to rust, it failed to make a lasting impression on the automotive market. In an era when consumers were seeking vehicles that combined style, reliability, and innovation, the Rebel's shortcomings rendered it a forgettable option. The story of the 1970 AMC Rebel serves as a reminder of the importance of quality and refinement in the automotive industry, as manufacturers must continually strive to meet and exceed the expectations of their customers to remain competitive. These 13 additional cars from the 1970s further showcase the disappointing designs and poor performance that plagued many American automakers during the decade. Despite their affordability, they were often unreliable, unattractive, and impractical.